All right, let's regroup. We've got two more sections left. Next up is chord types. What makes a chord major? What makes it minor? You've probably heard these terms before. So let's go over to the piano and let's talk about it. The cool thing is major chords and minor chords are very similar. There's just one subtle difference between the two. So let's actually start with what they have in common. Both major and minor chords have what's called a fifth. We talked about that during the interval section. And all that means is I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the more technical definition is a fifth has 7 half steps, but I don't really super want you to worry about that. Just realize that you can count to a fifth, and that's going to be in both major and minor chords. Now the difference is for a major chord, the middle note is going to have a spacing of 4 half steps. So let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that's root, third, fifth. A minor chord, on the other hand, has a spacing of 3 half steps. 1, 2, 3. And as you can see, that's just a one-note difference between major and minor. They're very close, but they're slightly different. And that slight difference makes a big impact on the sound. A major chord has a happier sound, and a minor chord has a sadder sound. Now, the way you would write this out, the way you would talk about it, is that a major chord is a root, a third, and a fifth. A minor chord is root, flat third, and a fifth. And it's important to note that when we talk about sharping things or flatting things, it doesn't always mean black keys, right? A lot of the time it does, but really all sharp means is that we're raising something, and all flat means is that we're lowering something. So let me show you an example. If I play a D major chord, I'll just show you, this is D major. And we can double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, so that's D major. And you can see I've already got a black key built into it, F sharp. Now if I want to find D minor, all I have to do is flat, or in other words lower, this F sharp, this third. So I'm going to lower it down to F natural. And here we are on D minor, D, F, and A. And as you saw, it's only a one-note difference between D major, which has F sharp built into it, and D minor, which has F natural. Now let's apply this a little bit, and let's find some chords together. Let's say we want to figure out, say, E minor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get E, and I'm also going to get the fifth ready, because I know both major and minor chords have this same fifth. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the only question is, where is the middle note? Well, for E minor, remember that's 3 half steps. 1, 2, 3. So this chord would be E minor. Now let's say I want to find A major. Well, again, I'm going to go to an A fifth, because that's going to be the same regardless. And then for a major chord, I'm going to count 4 half steps. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, A major. Now in this case, A major is A, C sharp, and E. It works the exact same way on the black keys. So the fifths, let's say for instance C to G, it works the same way. If I just sharp both of them, my fifth is C sharp to G sharp. Then all I have left is the middle note, which would be 1, 2, 3 for a minor chord, or 1, 2, 3, 4 for a major chord. So in other words, all that to say I follow the exact same mechanics. I find a fifth, I find my middle note, depending on whether I want major or minor. Alright, now the last thing to be aware of is that these fifths are really easy to find, right? It's that kind of shape. You can just use your hand as a guide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the one place where it's sort of different, if I go from B to F, what's interesting is right here, we're at a spot on the piano where there's no black key here, and there's no black key here, so it sort of throws off the spacing. And if you count it out, this isn't a fifth because I only have 6 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember, for an actual fifth, all those other ones are going to have 7 half steps. But right here, we're just in a weird spot on the piano where it ends up being only 6. To fix that, if I want to do a fifth on B, I've got to compensate and stretch from B to F sharp. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. All the other fifths, you can just eyeball, it's super easy. But B is sort of this one weird one that we need F sharp to make it a full fifth. Same thing with the flat keys. I can just keep the same spacing of C sharp to G sharp or D sharp to A sharp, same exact spacing until I get to the problem child of B. So B flat, if I go up here to like G flat or something, that's way too far. Instead what I do is I go B flat to F. And again, all I'm trying to find is 7 half steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All of this boils down to the fact that, you know, C is normal, C sharp is normal, D is normal, and so on and so on. The weird one is B. B flat and B natural. Those two are the ones where it doesn't quite match up. So just keep that in mind as you're finding your chords, that the fifths really aren't too weird unless you're on the note B or B flat. Alright, let's do one more example, and let's say we want to find B major. Well, we're going to go to B, and we're going to remember that this isn't our fifth in this case. It's actually F sharp. And now that we have our fifth, all we're going to do is count 4 half steps for our major third. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go, B major, root, third, and fifth. Now you know the dictionary definition of major and minor. And one quick thing to note, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but every chord can be rearranged. For instance, instead of playing a C chord as the standard C, E, G, what if we take that C on bottom and move it to the top of the chord? Then we would have E, G, C, and that's what's called an inversion. So, root position is the term for when a chord is in order. We say that's in root position. But when we change the order, when we rearrange it, we just call that an inversion. And inversions are totally fine as well. They're just as valid as root position chords. But I don't want you to get too confused about that right now. I just wanted you to know that that is a thing that can happen. What I want to do now is tie this back in to our video on finding the diatonic chords, the chords from our scale. You'll remember for the C scale, we went through Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, and we found the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 chords like that. Well, now let's go back and let's figure out, well, what were those chords, right? In other words, this was my 1 chord from the key of C. Well, what is this? Is it C major? Is it C minor? In this case, because I have 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's C major. But now, check this out. If I go up to the D chord, the 2 chord, if I look at the spacing, look at this. 1, 2, 3. So the 2 chord is actually minor, which is kind of interesting. Let's keep going. The 3 chord, we have a spacing of 3 half steps, so that's minor. The 4 chord has a spacing of 4 half steps, so that's major. 5, again, we could take this a lot slower and really work through each one, but this is also going to be major. 6, 1, 2, 3 is minor. And 7 is actually something called diminished. You don't have to worry about that in this section. We'll cover that in a later video. Here's where things get a little more interesting. Let's do a different scale. Okay, so for example, in the earlier video we did a G scale, and we found all the chords that come from the key of G, and we remembered that F sharp as we went through, right? Because that's part of the scale. Now, if we look at each individual chord, we'll find that 1 is major, so G major, 2 is minor, A minor in this case, 3 is minor, B minor, then C major, D major, 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, E minor, 1, 2, 3 half steps, 7 is diminished, and G is major yet again at the top. So, what I hope you noticed is that the 1 chord in both cases was major. The 2 chord in both of those instances was minor, and so on, right? So what I'm getting at is that no matter what scale we use, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord are major, and the 2, 3, and 6 chords are minor. That's going to hold true no matter what scale we're using, no matter what key we're in. And to me, this is so crazy. This is why our ear doesn't care about what scale a song is using. Right? The melody, the chords, it's all based off of the same set of whole steps and half steps. So everything that we pull out of the hat, whether that be a certain melody, whether that be a certain chord progression, since it's all based off of the same thing, it's always going to sound the same to our ears, right? Do, re, mi, fa, so sounds relatively the same in any scale. The one chord sounds relatively the same in any scale. For people with perfect pitch, the differences between the scales are a lot more pronounced, but for people without perfect pitch, like myself and probably like you, we're just as happy to hear a song in one key as we are to hear it in another. So earlier I did Happy Birthday in the key of C, and I did it in the key of A flat. And both ways sound perfectly acceptable. And same thing earlier, when I did Beauty and the Beast, I started in the original key, and then I transposed it to the key of E. And either way, it's still going to sound like the song. That's why learning this underlying stuff is so powerful. You learn the basics, again, do, re, mi for the melody, and 1, 2, 3 for the chords, and then you just apply that to whatever scale you need. And all songs in all genres are based off of those simple building blocks. Okay, recap. A major chord has 4 half steps between the root and the third, and a minor chord has just 3 half steps. We also learned that within our diatonic chords, within our scale, the 1, 4, and 5 chords are major, and the 2, 3, and 6 chords are minor. The 7th chord is diminished. That's something we'll save for the more intermediate video. For now, just remember that word diminished. We'll get to that later. Your action step for this video is to play every major and minor chord, one at a time. So for instance, you might start on C major and go to C minor, then D major to D minor, E major to E minor, and so on.